The sun hung high over Portland, casting a warm glow on the suburban streets. I often found solace in my daily routine, a comforting rhythm that kept me grounded. Mornings started with coffee brewed strong enough to jolt me awake, followed by a quick glance at the news while Mark shuffled through emails at the kitchen table. He was always preoccupied, his mind miles away from our home. Conversations felt like echoes of what once was, replaced by the mundane details of life, grocery lists and weekend plans that never seemed to excite him. As I washed my car one Saturday afternoon, the familiar sound of water splashing against metal provided a momentary distraction. I took pride in keeping my little sedan clean. It was one of the few things I could control in my otherwise chaotic life. The neighborhood buzzed with activity, the laughter of children playing nearby and the distant chatter of neighbors catching up. Yet, despite this vibrant backdrop, I felt increasingly isolated. That's when I spotted Tom, my neighbor from across the street. He was washing his own car, and for a moment, our eyes met. It wasn't just a casual glance, there was something electric about it. He waved, a friendly gesture that pulled me out of my thoughts. "Need any help?" he called out, his voice carrying over the sound of running water. I shook my head but smiled back at him. "Nope. Just enjoying the sunshine." His laugh rang out like music, and for a brief moment, I felt lighter. Tom had always been friendly, an artist with an infectious enthusiasm for life, but I never thought much about him beyond casual waves and polite exchanges. As we continued washing our cars in parallel driveways, an unexpected twist occurred. Our hoses tangled together as we both reached for them at the same time. The sudden proximity caught me off guard, our hands brushed against each other as we untangled them. My heart raced, not from embarrassment but from something deeper that had lain dormant for years. "Sorry about that," he said with a chuckle, stepping back slightly but not breaking eye contact. "It's okay," I replied, feeling heat rise to my cheeks. We stood there awkwardly for a moment before I turned back to my car, trying to shake off the strange sensation that lingered in the air between us. Yet as I resumed rinsing off soap suds, thoughts of Mark faded into the background noise of summer cicadas and distant lawnmowers. "Do you want to grab some ice cream later?" Tom asked suddenly. I hesitated before answering. It felt like an invitation to step outside my carefully constructed boundaries. "Sure," I said finally, surprising myself with how easy it was to agree. After finishing up our chores, Tom waved goodbye as he headed inside his house while I lingered in front of mine. A part of me wanted to rush after him and continue our conversation. Another part reminded me of Mark's indifference and how long it had been since someone had shown genuine interest in me. Later that evening, as Mark settled into his usual spot on the couch with his laptop in hand, I found myself lost in thought about Tom's invitation. The idea of ice cream felt innocent enough yet thrilling, a chance to break free from monotony even if just for an hour or two. "Are you coming to watch this?" Mark gestured toward the television screen where some sports game flickered dimly. "Maybe later," I replied absently. He grunted in response but didn't press further. He rarely did these days. The silence stretched between us like an unspoken agreement to avoid deeper conversations about our marriage or anything resembling intimacy. As night fell over Portland and shadows danced across our living room walls, anticipation gnawed at my insides like hunger pangs before dinner. Was this ice cream outing crossing a line? Did it matter? The thrill of possibility overshadowed any guilt creeping into my mind. The following day arrived with clear skies and bright sunshine, a perfect day for ice cream and whatever else might unfold with Tom. After finishing household chores and pretending everything was normal around Mark, who barely noticed my distracted demeanor, I stepped outside into the warmth of late morning air. Tom greeted me at his door with an easy smile that sent butterflies fluttering through my stomach. "Ready?" he asked cheerfully as we walked towards his car parked on the street. "Absolutely," I replied too eagerly perhaps, but couldn't rein in my excitement now that we were finally together outside our homes, two neighbors breaking bread, or rather ice cream, in more ways than one. We drove toward Alberta Street where colorful shops lined both sides like a vibrant tapestry woven from creativity and culture, a stark contrast to the muted tones inside my house where conversations often fell flat against stale walls painted beige long ago without thought or care. At an artisanal ice cream shop known for its unique flavors, lavender honey or spicy chocolate, I felt giddy as we stood side by side contemplating our choices amidst laughter shared over silly flavor names while indulging in scoops piled high atop cones dripping slightly under warm sunlight above us. "This is amazing," Tom exclaimed after taking a bite of his salted caramel scoop while glancing sideways at me expectantly as if waiting for approval on his choice too, and suddenly everything felt lighter than air itself, filled with sweetness swirling around us both, a connection blossoming unexpectedly amidst laughter shared freely without fear or judgment, lingering nearby like shadows cast by trees lining sidewalks around us, now alive with summer energy buzzing all around us too. But then reality crashed back down when we returned home later that afternoon. Mark's face greeted me at the door without words spoken, yet heavy silence filled every inch between us, again reminding me why moments spent away felt so necessary now more than ever before. As evening settled over Portland, once more bringing darkness along its edges, illuminating streets softly under streetlights glowing gently overhead, I couldn't shake off what had happened earlier today, nor could ignore how easily joy slipped through fingers grasping tightly onto something fragile yet beautiful, emerging slowly outside confines built carefully over years spent together alongside someone who'd become more stranger than partner lately. And then came the twist. My phone buzzed unexpectedly, a message alert flashing brightly across its screen, cutting through thoughts swirling within, head still racing, trying to process everything happening around me now. Tom's name appeared there, lighting up darkness surrounding me even further, igniting excitement mixed dread all at once. "Had fun today? Let's do it again soon." I stared at those words, feeling warmth spread throughout body, instantly igniting spark already ignited earlier today. But beneath surface lay something darker, lurking just outside, waiting patiently, ready pounce should chance arise. What would happen next? Would Mark notice changes unfolding beneath surface? Would secrets remain hidden long enough, allow new beginnings flourish safely away from prying eyes watching closely every move made? Tomorrow promised answers, but tonight left questions hanging heavily above head like storm clouds threatening rain soon enough. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood as I stood at the window, staring blankly at the street. The encounter with Tom replayed in my mind like a captivating film, each moment vivid and charged with an energy I hadn't felt in years. Guilt settled in my stomach like a stone. Mark was downstairs, oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I could hear him moving around in the kitchen, rattling pots and pans as he prepared dinner. The familiar sounds of our domestic life felt like a distant echo now. I wanted to reach out to Tom, to explore this unexpected connection further, but the weight of my marriage pressed down on me like a heavy blanket. That weekend was the annual Alberta Street Festival, an event I had always looked forward to but now felt like an obligation rather than a joy. As I wandered through the stalls filled with vibrant art and laughter, I caught sight of Tom across the way. He stood by a booth displaying handmade jewelry, his presence magnetic amidst the crowd. My heart raced at the thought of seeing him again. "Hey there. Fancy seeing you here," he said when I approached, his smile bright and inviting. "Hi. I didn't expect to run into you," I replied, trying to sound casual. Tom's eyes sparkled with mischief as we fell into easy conversation. We shared stories and laughter about our lives, his adventures as an artist and my mundane routine filled with grocery lists and chores. In that moment, surrounded by art and creativity, I felt alive again. As we moved from booth to booth, Tom's hand brushed against mine several times, each touch sent shivers through me. The air between us thickened with unspoken words and shared glances that lingered just a bit too long. It was exhilarating yet terrifying. "I've got something special for you," he said suddenly, pulling out a small wooden carving from his bag, a delicate piece shaped like a bird in flight. "It's beautiful," I breathed, admiring the craftsmanship. "You made this?" "Yeah," he replied sheepishly. "I thought of you when I carved it." His words hung in the air between us like an invitation, an acknowledgement of something deeper than mere friendship. As dusk began to settle over Alberta Street, we found ourselves alone near a quieter corner of the festival where twinkling lights hung overhead like stars come down to earth. The sounds of music faded into background noise as we stood close together. "I've really enjoyed this," Tom said softly, his gaze locked onto mine. "Me too," I admitted, feeling bold despite the fluttering anxiety in my chest. In that moment of vulnerability and connection, Tom leaned closer. Our lips met softly at first, a hesitant brush that ignited something deep within me. The kiss deepened as time seemed to suspend itself around us. Nothing else mattered except that moment shared between two souls craving something more. The thrill left me breathless but also terrified by what it meant for my life back home with Mark. As we pulled away from each other, reality crashed back in like an unwelcome wave washing over sandcastles built too close to shore. "What are we doing?" I whispered nervously. Tom stepped back slightly but kept his eyes on me. "I don't know yet, but it feels right." A mixture of excitement and dread flooded through me as we exchanged uncertain smiles before parting ways for the night. The festival continued around us. People danced under fairy lights while laughter echoed through the streets, but all I could think about was how my heart raced for someone who wasn't my husband. When I returned home later that evening, Mark was already seated at the dining table waiting for dinner, a plate filled with his favorite pasta before him but untouched. "Hey. How was your day?" he asked casually without looking up from his phone. "It was fine," I replied flatly while forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. He nodded absent-mindedly before returning to whatever distraction had captured his attention again, a stark reminder of how disconnected we had become over time. As dinner progressed in silence punctuated only by clinking utensils against plates, guilt gnawed at me relentlessly. What had happened today? What would happen next? Would Mark ever notice changes unfolding beneath surface? After dinner ended without any meaningful conversation or connection between us, just another routine evening, I slipped into bed feeling restless and conflicted inside my own skin. The memory of Tom's kiss lingered on my lips as if it were still happening. Every heartbeat echoed with excitement mixed with fear about what lay ahead. The thrill of new beginnings weighed against responsibilities tethered tightly around me like chains forged from years spent together building a life alongside someone who no longer saw me fully anymore. Tomorrow promised answers, but tonight left questions hanging heavily above head like storm clouds threatening rain soon enough. The park was quiet, a serene escape from the chaos of my thoughts. The sun filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the grass. I sat on a bench, absently tracing patterns in the wood with my fingers while my mind raced through memories of Tom. Our meeting felt like a dream, a moment suspended in time, yet the reality of my marriage loomed large. Tom had texted me earlier that day. "Want to meet at our spot?" My heart skipped at the thought of seeing him again. Each exchange sparked a thrill that I hadn't experienced in years. But beneath that excitement lay a growing guilt, gnawing at me like an insistent whisper. "Julia?" A voice pulled me from my reverie. I looked up to see Tom approaching, his casual demeanor contrasting sharply with the turmoil inside me. He wore a simple t-shirt and jeans, but there was an ease about him that made my heart race. "Hey," I replied, trying to sound casual as he settled onto the bench beside me. The air between us crackled with unspoken words and shared secrets. "I'm glad you came," he said softly, glancing around to ensure we were alone. "I've been thinking about you." My stomach fluttered at his words, those simple phrases held so much weight now. Me too, I admitted, feeling vulnerable yet exhilarated. We fell into an easy conversation about art and life in Portland, but beneath the surface lay an undercurrent of tension. My thoughts drifted back to Mark, his distant gaze during dinner last night, and how he barely noticed when I slipped away for a walk instead of sitting beside him on the couch. As Tom spoke about a new exhibit opening downtown, I caught myself staring at him, really looking at him, and felt an overwhelming urge to bridge the gap between us. Our eyes locked for what felt like an eternity before he leaned closer. "Can I ask you something?" His voice was low and serious now. "Sure," I replied, holding my breath as anticipation swelled within me. "What are we doing here?" Whatever this is between us." His gaze bore into mine, searching for answers that eluded me as well. I hesitated, weighing my response carefully. The truth was complicated. It twisted around my heart like ivy climbing an old tree, beautiful yet suffocating. "I don't know," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But it feels real." Tom nodded slowly, his expression softening as he reached out and took my hand in his, a simple gesture that sent shivers down my spine. It felt both comforting and dangerous. It was everything I craved yet everything I feared. "Then let's not overthink it," he suggested gently, brushing his thumb over my knuckles as if reassuring me that this moment belonged to us alone. I could hardly breathe as our eyes locked again. There was no denying the connection pulsing between us now. It felt like stepping off a cliff into unknown waters, terrifying yet intoxicatingly freeing all at once. And then it happened. Our lips met in a soft kiss that held promises unspoken and desires awakened deep within me. Time seemed to stand still as everything else faded away. The park around us became just a backdrop to this moment of clarity amidst chaos. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and wide-eyed with surprise at our impulsiveness, reality crashed back in with full force. What had we just done? "I shouldn't have," I started to say but couldn't finish as doubt crept back and like shadows lengthening at dusk. "Hey," Tom interrupted softly but firmly. "It's okay." He squeezed my hand tighter, grounding me amidst swirling emotions threatening to pull me under. But Mark, the name hung heavily between us, a reminder of obligations and expectations that felt suffocating now more than ever. "He doesn't see you," Tom said quietly but confidently. "Not like this." His words struck deep. They echoed truths I had buried for too long under layers of routine and complacency. "I'm scared," I confessed finally, feeling exposed under his gaze as if all my vulnerabilities were laid bare before him. "Of what?" he pressed gently but insistently. "Of losing everything, or worse, losing myself." The admission stung like salt on an open wound. It was raw and honest, a side of me Mark had long since stopped noticing or caring about. Tom's expression softened further, understanding flickered in his eyes as he leaned closer again until our foreheads touched lightly, a gesture filled with tenderness that spoke volumes without needing words at all. "We'll figure it out together," he promised softly before pulling back slightly so our eyes could meet fully again, the connection palpable even through uncertainty hanging thickly around us like fog rolling in off the coastlines nearby Portland's shores. But just then, a sudden rustle nearby broke our intimate bubble. Startled glances darted toward the sound only to reveal nothing more than squirrels scurrying across fallen leaves oblivious to our world unraveling quietly beneath their paws. The moment passed quickly but left behind lingering questions swirling through my mind. Could this truly work? Was it worth risking everything for something so uncertain? As we both fell silent again, lost deep within contemplation, I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that any choice made today would echo far beyond this park bench into every corner of life, waiting beyond its edges where responsibilities awaited patiently just outside view. The sun began its descent behind trees lining the park edge, casting long shadows over us, a reminder that time marches on relentlessly whether we're ready or not. Tom broke through those thoughts gently by standing up abruptly, causing me to glance up surprised at his sudden movement, breaking our shared reverie entirely, now tinged with urgency too palpable to ignore any longer despite lingering warmth still lingering from earlier moments shared intimately together moments ago, only minutes past, now seeming so far away already. "I need to go," he said reluctantly, glancing back toward where we had come from, knowing full well how much longer we could linger here without consequences creeping closer than either of us wanted them to right now. "Yeah," my voice trailed off, heavy laden with unsaid things left hanging suspended between us, neither wanting nor willing yet fully prepared for what lay ahead next after leaving this place behind once more. As Tom walked away, slowly glancing back one last time before disappearing down winding paths leading deeper into park grounds, I couldn't shake off anxiety creeping back, slowly settling over heart, once more reminding me just how precarious everything truly was becoming lately. With each step taken further away from what felt safe, I knew change loomed ahead, waiting just beyond horizon, threatening everything familiar while simultaneously offering glimpses into possibilities previously unimagined until now, revealing paths never considered before. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, tangled in sheets, my mind racing with thoughts of Tom and the choices I had made. We spent the night together, and the warmth of his presence lingered like a comforting blanket. Yet, beneath that warmth lay an unsettling chill, the reality of my life with Mark. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to wake Tom. The house felt eerily quiet without the usual sounds of breakfast preparation or morning news blaring from the television. As I moved through the living room, memories of our shared moments flooded back, the laughter at the festival, our whispered secrets in the park. Each memory tugged at my heartstrings, reminding me of the emotional void I had been trying to fill. In the kitchen, I poured myself a cup of coffee and stared out at the backyard. The flowers Mark had planted last spring were blooming vibrantly, yet they felt distant to me now. I thought about how often I had ignored their beauty while lost in my own thoughts. My phone buzzed on the counter, breaking my reverie. It was a message from Tom. "Good morning. Hope you're still smiling." A flutter of excitement mixed with guilt coursed through me. I hesitated before responding, knowing that each message was another step deeper into uncharted territory. "Morning. Still waking up," I typed back, feeling both exhilarated and anxious about where this connection was leading us. Just as I hit send, Mark walked in, his hair tousled and eyes still heavy with sleep. "You're up early," he said casually as he poured himself a cup of coffee. "Couldn't sleep," I replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than genuine cheerfulness. Mark glanced at me over his mug, his expression unreadable. "You seem different lately." There was an edge to his voice that made my heart race, a hint of suspicion or perhaps concern. "Just busy with work," I offered weakly, hoping he wouldn't press further. He nodded but didn't look convinced. Instead, he turned his attention to the backyard where our dog was chasing after butterflies. "We should take him for a walk later," he suggested. "Sure," I replied absently as my mind drifted back to Tom and what we had shared, an undeniable spark that ignited something within me long extinguished by routine. After breakfast, Mark left for work while I busied myself with household chores, dusting shelves and folding laundry, anything to distract from my swirling thoughts about Tom and our secret rendezvous. Guilt gnawed at me like an unwelcome guest refusing to leave. Later that afternoon, as I prepared lunch for myself alone in our kitchen filled with silence once more, a knock echoed through the house. My heart quickened. It was too early for Mark to be back home. Cautiously opening the door revealed Lisa, a mutual friend from our neighborhood who often stopped by unannounced. "Hey. Just thought I'd check in on you," she said brightly as she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I forced a smile while internally panicking over how much she might see through my facade. "Oh hi. Just making some lunch." Lisa's eyes darted around the living room before settling back on me with curiosity etched across her face. You seem off lately? Everything okay? Yeah. Just busy, I repeated again, my rehearsed line beginning to sound hollow even to myself. She studied me closely for a moment longer before nodding slowly as if deciding whether or not to press further on whatever instinct she sensed beneath my surface calmness. Well, if you need anything or want some company, you know where to find me. Thanks, I said gratefully, but felt relief wash over me when she finally left after promising to return soon for coffee. Once alone again though, my mind raced back toward Tom and what we could be building together despite everything else unraveling around us. The next few days passed in a blur of stolen moments, text messages exchanged during work hours and brief encounters outside when Mark wasn't home. Each meeting with Tom became increasingly charged, laughter mingled with hushed conversations under starry skies transformed into something deeper than either of us could have anticipated at first glance. But guilt lingered like an unwelcome shadow hovering just behind every shared smile or touch, a constant reminder that this connection came at a price which weighed heavily upon my conscience each time we met again in secret corners away from prying eyes. One evening after another spontaneous rendezvous filled with laughter echoing softly against twilight skies, I returned home breathless yet exhilarated only to find Mark waiting up for me on our couch looking concerned rather than angry, which caught me off guard completely. "Where have you been?" His voice held an edge tinged with worry rather than accusation, which made it harder still. Confrontation loomed ahead like storm clouds gathering overhead threatening rain without warning. "I went for a walk, needed some fresh air," I lied smoothly enough but felt heat rising within cheeks betraying truth behind words spoken too casually perhaps. Mark's gaze pierced through layers built around emotions kept hidden away far too long. He looked directly into eyes searching desperately for answers while remaining silent, instead allowing tension between us amplify until palpable, almost suffocating even. Finally breaking free from silence lingering thick between us, I asked hesitantly, "What's wrong? You seem worried." He hesitated before speaking again, carefully choosing words weighed down by meaning hidden beneath surface-level conversation typically shared over dinner tables, instead revealing depths rarely explored openly anymore since life took over years ago. "I don't want to lose you, Julia." His voice cracked slightly, revealing vulnerability beneath bravado, masking fears long buried deep inside him, all this time too afraid, perhaps acknowledging reality faced head-on rather than pretending everything remained fine when clearly it wasn't anymore. My heart raced wildly now, caught between two worlds colliding violently against one another, leaving no clear path forward without consequences looming ominously just beyond horizon, threatening everything familiar once more. In that moment, standing before him, I knew choices lay ahead demanding clarity amidst chaos swirling around us both, yet uncertainty lingered heavily like fog obscuring vision forward, leaving only one thing certain: whatever happened next would change everything forever. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting soft shadows across the bedroom. I lay awake, tangled in sheets and thoughts, contemplating the mess of emotions swirling inside me. Mark stirred beside me, his presence both comforting and suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that my heart was somewhere else, tangled up in a secret I wasn't ready to confront. As I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Tom flashed on the screen. "Can we talk? I need to see you." Anxiety gripped my chest. The last thing I needed was more complications. Yet a part of me craved that connection, the thrill of being wanted. I took a deep breath and decided to respond later. The day ahead promised mundane tasks that would keep my mind occupied: grocery shopping, laundry, and pretending everything was fine. But as I moved through my routine, unease settled in like an unwelcome guest. At breakfast, Mark sipped his coffee and scrolled through his phone without looking up. "Any plans today?" he asked absent-mindedly. "Just the usual," I replied, forcing a smile. "Might take a walk later." He nodded but didn't engage further. The silence felt heavy between us, a chasm widening with every passing day. Mark's attention had shifted elsewhere, he was buried in work and responsibilities while I floated aimlessly in our home. After breakfast, I took a moment to gather myself before stepping outside. The neighborhood hummed with life, children playing, neighbors chatting over fences, but it all felt distant, as if I were watching from behind glass. My heart raced at the thought of seeing Tom again. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. I walked toward Alberta Street, where vibrant art installations lined the sidewalks. The colors danced in the sunlight, but they couldn't distract me from the gnawing guilt festering inside me. Would this be the day everything unraveled? As I wandered through shops filled with local crafts and paintings, my phone buzzed again, another message from Tom. "I'm at the park." A pang of longing shot through me. Our secret meetings had become an escape from reality, a place where we could share our thoughts without judgment. But what would happen when Mark found out? He was starting to notice my absences more keenly. Suspicion hung in the air like smoke after a fire. I decided to meet Tom despite my reservations. Perhaps clarity awaited me there among the trees and laughter of children playing nearby. Arriving at the park felt like stepping into another world, a sanctuary away from responsibilities and expectations. Tom sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree, his expression shifting from concern to relief as he saw me approach. "Hey," he greeted softly as I sat down beside him. "Hi," I replied cautiously. "What's going on?" "I just wanted to check on you," he said earnestly. "You seemed distant lately." "I've been busy," I offered weakly, knowing it was only half true. Tom studied me for a moment before speaking again. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right?" His words hit home harder than expected. They echoed everything I longed for yet feared acknowledging fully. Our conversations had become an emotional refuge for both of us, a place where vulnerability thrived amidst uncertainty. "I appreciate that," I managed to say as my heart raced at his sincerity. We talked about art festivals coming up in Portland, the vibrancy of life outside our own struggles, but underneath it all lay unspoken tension brewing between us like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Then came his unexpected question, "What about Mark? How does he fit into all this?" The directness caught me off guard. I hesitated before responding thoughtfully. "He's busy with work." My voice faltered slightly as guilt washed over me anew. Tom leaned closer, his eyes searching mine for answers unspoken, and suddenly everything felt too raw too soon. Emotions threatened to spill over like ink on paper left out in rain. "I don't want you to feel trapped," he said quietly but firmly, breaking through layers of pretense surrounding our connection. Before I could respond effectively or even process what those words meant for us both, a sudden realization struck like lightning. It wasn't just about seeking excitement anymore. It was about finding authenticity amidst chaos swirling around our lives devoid of clarity or fulfillment. Yet just then, my phone buzzed again with an incoming call from Mark, jolting me back into reality as if someone had doused cold water over flames igniting within my chest. "Excuse me," I murmured apologetically while answering quickly without checking caller ID first. It was instinctual reflex born out of years spent navigating domestic routines filled with obligations rather than desires unmet. "Julia." Mark's voice came through sharp and demanding, the tone unmistakable even amid background noise around him. "We need to talk." My stomach dropped at his urgency. Dread settled heavily within me as moments stretched interminably between breaths taken before responding cautiously, "Is everything okay?" "No. It's not okay." His frustration seeped through every word spoken next, a mixture of anger tinged with hurt. "I found something on your phone." Panic surged within me like wildfire, consuming everything once familiar, the realization crashing down upon us both. Whatever fragile balance existed now hung precariously by threads fraying dangerously close toward inevitable unraveling. "What did you find?" My voice trembled slightly, though determination surged beneath surface fear simmering below. "You know exactly what I'm talking about." He snapped back fiercely, accusations laced thickly within each syllable spoken next, piercing deeper wounds already festering beneath skin worn thin by secrets kept too long hidden away behind closed doors between us. I can explain. Words tumbled out desperately, seeking purchase against rising tide, threatening to drown any chance left at salvaging whatever remained intact, still clinging desperately onto hope, lingering faintly somewhere beneath surface chaos erupting around us both, now spiraling beyond control into unknown territory ahead, looming ominously just beyond horizon, threatening everything familiar once more. Silence followed, heavy laden with unspoken truths hanging thickly between breaths exchanged only moments earlier, now replaced by tension crackling like electricity filling air surrounding us both, threatening consequences looming ever closer, drawing nearer toward inevitable confrontation awaiting just around corner ahead. The air was thick with tension, heavy with the weight of unspoken words. Mark's eyes bore into mine, searching for answers I struggled to articulate. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like a caged bird desperate for freedom. I had never seen him look so vulnerable, yet here we were, standing on the precipice of a truth that could shatter everything. "I just want to know what's going on," he said, his voice steady but laced with an undertone of hurt. "You've been distant lately." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words tangled in my throat. How could I explain this whirlwind of emotions? The spark I felt with Tom was intoxicating, yet it was also a betrayal that gnawed at my conscience. "Mark, it's complicated," I finally managed to say. "Complicated?" He scoffed lightly, shaking his head in disbelief. "Is that what you call it?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty simple." The accusation stung more than I expected. "I didn't mean..." "Didn't mean what?" he interrupted. "To hurt me? To keep secrets?" "Because that's exactly what it feels like." A knot formed in my stomach as I considered how to navigate this conversation without losing everything I had built over the years. "I'm just feeling lost," I admitted finally, surprised by my own honesty. "Things haven't felt right for a while now." Mark's expression softened momentarily as if he understood the weight of my confession. "You think you're the only one feeling lost? You think this is easy for me?" His voice trembled slightly as he continued. "I've tried reaching out to you, but you keep shutting me out." His vulnerability struck a chord deep within me. In our years together, we had both drifted into our own worlds, him with his work and me with my quiet despair. The realization hit me hard. Perhaps we were both seeking something outside our marriage. "I didn't mean to shut you out," I said softly, searching his face for any sign of understanding. "I just wanted to feel something again." "And running off with the neighbor is your solution?" The edge in his voice returned. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this," I confessed, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "Tom just made me feel alive again." Mark studied me closely before responding, and in that moment of silence, the truth hung between us like a fragile thread ready to snap at any moment. "I can't believe you'd do this," he said finally, disappointment etched across his features like a shadow that threatened to consume him whole. Before I could respond further, Mark turned away and paced across the room like a caged animal seeking escape from its confines. Each step echoed loudly in the silence that followed. It was as if every footfall marked another crack forming in our already fragile relationship. "Do you even care about what this means for us?" he asked after a pause, turning back toward me with an intensity that made me flinch. "Of course I care." My voice rose involuntarily as frustration bubbled up inside me. "But everything feels so broken right now. Maybe we should try fixing it together instead of running away," he suggested quietly after another long pause. His words pierced through my defenses. They were an invitation wrapped in vulnerability, a chance at rebuilding what had been lost between us all these years. "I don't know if we can go back," I admitted hesitantly. "Then let's figure out how to move forward." As much as those words comforted me, they also terrified me. they held the weight of decisions yet unmade and paths still unexplored. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table beside me, a stark reminder of Tom's presence in my life and the choices looming ahead like dark clouds threatening rain on an otherwise sunny day. Mark glanced at it before looking back at me expectantly. There was no hiding from him now. The message was from Tom. "Can we meet tonight?" My heart raced anew as panic surged through me. How could I possibly explain this without tearing apart everything? "Who is it?" Mark asked sharply. "It's no one important." He stepped closer again, invading my space with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not lying." The desperation in my voice betrayed more than just fear. It revealed a deeper conflict raging within myself about who I wanted to be and where loyalty truly lay. Mark scrutinized my face for a moment longer before his shoulders slumped slightly in resignation. He looked defeated yet resolute all at once, a man caught between love and betrayal, unwillingly thrust into chaos neither of us had anticipated. "What do you want from this?" he asked softly now, almost pleadingly, as if seeking clarity amidst confusion swirling around us both. "I don't know." My response felt inadequate against such profound questions about love and commitment, questions that had haunted us both silently until now but remained unanswered nonetheless despite our many years together. As silence enveloped us again like fog rolling over Portland streets after dusk settled upon them slowly, each breath filled with uncertainty, I knew there would be no easy resolution here tonight or any night thereafter until truths were laid bare before each other regardless of outcome, awaiting ahead too daunting yet necessary for healing broken hearts yearning for connection once more. And then came another buzz from my phone, the sound echoing ominously through stillness lingering between us both. A reminder that choices awaited beyond these walls, waiting patiently outside, readying themselves for inevitable confrontation, looming ever closer, drawing nearer toward unknown futures awaiting just beyond horizon ahead. A decision loomed large over our heads like storm clouds gathering strength above Portland skies. One choice would lead down paths filled with hope while another beckoned darkness threatening everything familiar once more. In that moment suspended between two lives, the one tethered tightly by obligation and expectation versus another filled with possibility yet fraught with danger, I stood frozen, unable to move forward or backward, caught within turmoil brewing beneath surface longing, desperately searching for resolution amidst chaos swirling endlessly around us both. As I stood there, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me, the doorbell rang. My heart raced as I glanced at Mark, who was still seated at the kitchen table, his eyes locked on his phone. The sound echoed through the house, a sharp reminder that life outside my internal chaos continued unabated. I took a deep breath, hoping it was just a neighbor stopping by for a casual chat. I opened the door to find Tom standing there, his expression a mixture of concern and eagerness. He looked different somehow, more serious than the carefree man I had come to know. "Hey, Julia," he said softly, stepping into my personal space uninvited yet familiar. "Can we talk?" "Now?" I whispered, glancing over my shoulder at Mark. He hadn't moved, he remained absorbed in his device, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond our front door. "Please," Tom urged, his voice barely above a whisper. There was an urgency in his tone that sent shivers down my spine. I hesitated but stepped aside to let him in. The moment he crossed the threshold felt monumental, a crossing from one world into another. "In here," I murmured, leading him to the living room where we could talk without fear of being overheard. Once inside, Tom's demeanor shifted from anxious to resolute as he leaned against the wall. "I need to tell you something important," he said, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I found both endearing and disconcerting. "What is it?" My voice trembled slightly as I crossed my arms defensively. "I've been thinking about us, about everything." He paused, searching my eyes for understanding. "There's something from my past that you should know." My stomach dropped as curiosity mingled with dread. "What do you mean?" Tom took a deep breath before continuing. Before I moved here, I had a relationship that, well, it didn't end well. His gaze flickered away momentarily as if grappling with old wounds. My ex-wife and I went through some really tough times, financial issues, trust problems. It shattered us. I felt an unexpected pang of empathy for him but also fear creeping in. Was this going to change everything? And how does this affect us? He straightened up and met my gaze again with intensity. I don't want to bring that baggage into what we have, but you deserve honesty. The implications hung heavy in the air between us like smoke from an extinguished fire, familiar yet suffocating. Tom, I began cautiously, this is all so sudden. I know, he interjected quickly. But if we're going to pursue this, he trailed off as though weighing each word carefully. Before he could finish his thought, Mark's voice called out from the kitchen. Julia. Who's at the door? Panic surged within me as Tom's eyes widened in alarm. We exchanged a brief look of shared understanding. Time seemed to freeze as we both realized how precarious our situation had become. Just a friend. I shouted back hastily while trying to maintain composure despite my racing heart. Tom took a step closer and lowered his voice urgently. We need to be careful. I know. My frustration bubbled over momentarily before I regained control of my emotions. Mark appeared in the doorway moments later with an inquisitive look on his face but no sign of suspicion, yet. He glanced between Tom and me before settling on me with curiosity etched across his features. Everything okay? He asked casually. Yes, I replied too quickly, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace than anything genuine. Mark turned back toward Tom with an amicable nod before returning to the kitchen where he resumed scrolling through his phone, a distraction that granted us precious seconds alone again. What do we do? Tom asked urgently once Mark was out of sight again. We need to talk later, I whispered fiercely while glancing toward the kitchen again for reassurance that Mark wouldn't return anytime soon. Tom nodded reluctantly but didn't move away from me. Instead, he leaned closer as if drawn by some invisible force binding us together despite everything else pulling us apart. I care about you, he murmured softly enough for only me to hear, the sincerity laced within those words sending warmth through me even amidst chaos swirling around our lives like autumn leaves caught in gusty winds. I care about you too, I admitted quietly before stepping back slightly. Clarity washed over me like cold water splashing against heated skin. It wasn't just physical attraction anymore, it ran deeper than that now, and yet. The tension hung thick between us until Mark's footsteps approached again. A reminder of reality crashing back down upon our fragile bubble filled with yearning and unresolved feelings lingering just out of reach like mist fading into dawn light illuminating hidden paths ahead. As Mark re-entered the living room casually asking about dinner plans while glancing at Tom once more with friendliness masking unspoken questions swirling beneath surface tensions bubbling quietly beneath skin, I felt torn between two worlds vying for dominance within me. After exchanging quick goodbyes with Tom under watchful eyes peering from kitchen doorway, I closed the door behind him feeling lost amidst swirling thoughts battling within head echoing doubts clashing against desires threatening everything familiar once more. Sitting across from Mark at dinner later that evening felt surreal, every bite tasted bland compared to what had transpired earlier, the laughter echoing around us muffled by uncertainty looming overhead like storm clouds gathering strength above Portland skies. Mark spoke animatedly about work while glancing occasionally toward me seeking connection, but all I could think about were those moments spent together earlier today, the weight behind unspoken words hanging heavily between us both threatening everything familiar once more. When finally facing each other after dinner under dim lights flickering gently overhead, I caught glimpse longing reflected within Mark's gaze, a silent plea masked beneath layers built over years spent together yet burdened by unfulfilled desires lingering quietly just beneath surface waiting patiently for recognition. Julia, His voice broke through silence, wrapping around us tightly like arms seeking comfort amidst chaos swirling endlessly around, both lives intertwined yet separate, yearning desperately, searching resolution amidst uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows upon everything once considered stable. Before he could continue speaking further, I knew then whatever path lay ahead would not only shape future but unravel threads connecting past, present, intertwining destinies woven intricately together, waiting patiently for resolution amidst turmoil brewing endlessly beneath surface, longing desperately, seeking clarity amidst chaos surrounding, lives intertwined yet separate, yearning desperately, searching resolution amidst uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows upon everything once considered stable. The air hung heavy with unspoken words, a tension thick enough to slice through. Mark's gaze, steady and searching, bore into me as if trying to peel back layers I had built around my heart. My fingers fidgeted with the hem of my shirt, the fabric a tangible reminder of the reality I had been avoiding. "Julia," he started again, his voice steady but laced with an underlying tremor. "I need you to be honest with me. Are you having an affair?" The question hung in the air like a storm cloud, dark and ominous. I opened my mouth to respond but found no words. Instead, I felt the weight of Tom's presence pressing down on me, a ghost lingering at the edges of my thoughts. The warmth I once felt when thinking of him now twisted into something more complicated, guilt mixed with longing. "I've seen how distant you've become," Mark continued, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "You're not the same person I married." His admission struck a chord deep within me. The truth was that we both had changed, perhaps we were never meant to drift so far apart. Yet here I was, caught between two worlds, a husband who was reaching out for connection and a neighbor who had ignited something within me that I thought was lost forever. "Mark," my voice faltered as emotions surged within me like a tide threatening to pull me under. "It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" His eyes searched mine for clarity, for something solid he could hold on to amid the chaos that surrounded us. I hesitated, weighing my options as if they were stones in my pocket, each one heavier than the last. "I've been feeling alone," I finally admitted, the words slipping out before I could retract them. "Alone?" His brow furrowed in confusion and concern. "But we're together." "Yes," I replied softly, feeling tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "But it feels different now." Silence enveloped us again as Mark processed my words. The truth lingered like an uninvited guest in our home, a presence neither of us knew how to confront fully. "I want to fix this," he said finally, determination creeping into his tone. "Let's go away for a weekend or talk to someone, anything." His suggestion felt both comforting and suffocating at once. Part of me longed for that connection while another part screamed against it, the part that craved freedom and excitement that Tom had unwittingly provided. Before I could respond, there was a soft knock on the door, a gentle interruption that pulled us both from our spiraling thoughts. It was Tom. He must have sensed something was off between us. "Julia," he called softly from outside. My heart raced at the sound of his voice. It felt like an electric current coursing through me despite everything else swirling around in my mind. Mark's expression shifted instantly from concern to suspicion as he turned toward the door. "Who is that?" I opened my mouth to answer but found myself frozen, caught in a web spun from choices made and paths taken without foresight or care for consequences. "It's just someone from the neighborhood," I stammered weakly. Mark narrowed his eyes slightly but didn't press further. Instead, he stepped back slightly as if creating space between us while also distancing himself from whatever lay beyond that door. "Julia," Tom called again gently, concern evident in his tone now too. "I'll be right there," I replied quickly before turning back toward Mark, who looked both hurt and bewildered by my response. "We need to talk about this," he insisted firmly but quietly as if afraid someone might overhear him revealing our fractures so openly. "I know," I whispered back urgently before turning away toward the door where Tom waited patiently yet anxiously on the other side. As I opened it slowly, relief washed over me at seeing him standing there, his familiar face bringing warmth amidst all this turmoil, but that relief quickly morphed into dread when Mark stepped up beside me protectively. "What are you doing here?" Mark asked sharply, causing Tom's smile to falter slightly before regaining its composure. "I just wanted to check on Julia," Tom replied evenly, though uncertainty flickered across his features like shadows dancing under dim light. "I thought maybe she needed some company." "She doesn't need company right now," Mark asserted firmly while glancing sideways at me, searching for affirmation or perhaps reassurance that everything would be fine despite this unexpected confrontation brewing before us all too suddenly. Tom glanced between us, the tension palpable, and for a moment it felt like time stood still, everything hinged on what would happen next. The choices laid bare before us like an open book waiting patiently for its next chapter while we stood paralyzed by fear of what those pages might contain. In that moment of silence, stretched thin between breaths taken too quickly, filled with uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows upon everything once considered stable. And then it happened. A sudden realization washed over me like ice water splashed against skin, awakening dormant senses long forgotten amidst daily routines filled only with emptiness echoing louder than any voice could ever convey. "I need time." My voice broke through quiet desperation, spilling forth unbidden as clarity rushed forth, filling spaces left vacant by indecision, lingering far too long without resolution, sought desperately, seeking freedom amidst chaos surrounding lives intertwined yet separate. Yearning, desperately searching resolution amidst uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows upon everything once considered stable. "What do you mean?" Mark asked sharply, though confusion colored his expression, deeply etched lines revealing years spent navigating uncharted waters together, now facing storms neither anticipated nor prepared for. Before another word could escape either mouth, before any further questions could be asked, Tom stepped forward, breaking through barriers erected by fear alone, standing resolutely beside me, offering silent support even amid turbulent waters threatening pull everyone under, dragging them down deeper still. And just then, the world shifted beneath our feet as revelations unfolded around us, reshaping destinies entwined tightly together, waiting patiently. And then it hit hard, a sudden realization cascading forth, leaving no room left untouched. "I can't do this anymore." The words fell heavy into silence, wrapping around all three of us tightly, squeezing, hearts beating erratically beneath layers built upon years spent pretending everything remained intact despite cracks widening dangerously beneath surface, longing desperately, seeking clarity. Amidst chaos surrounding lives intertwined yet separate, yearning desperately, searching resolution amidst uncertainty looming large overhead, casting shadows upon everything once considered stable.